Welcome to Mission 360, where we connect you to frontline missionaries.
Today on Mission 360, you'll meet 1 year in mission missionaries who have come from all over the world to reach a major city, New York City.
Before we begin, let's visit with Erica Richards to learn how 1 year in mission works.
1 Year in Mission is a new initiative of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, created for the purpose of training young people for volunteer service to effectively share their faith in Jesus Christ and their belief in His soon return. The vision for 1 Year in Mission came out of the church's desire to maximize the interest and passion of Seventh-day Adventist youth for mission and to provide greater opportunities for our youth to directly engage in leadership, decision-making, and in the proclamation of the everlasting gospel. The project is divided into phases. The first phase runs from January to June of 2013. During this time, 14 young adults from each of the World Church's 13 regions and the Middle East North Africa region will form the first pilot volunteer task force in New York City. They will undergo training in community service, communication, and evangelism. In the second phase, 14 volunteers will return to their home countries and serve as key personnel in the setting up of volunteer task forces in major cities chosen by their respective leaders. The process will then be duplicated in the local regions in 2015, and by God's grace, there will be an explosion of 1 Year in Mission participants worldwide. I'm personally very excited to see how God will use these young people in the coming year and beyond. You can follow their stories online at oneyearinmission.org and on Facebook at facebook.com/1yearinmission.
Currently, 1 year in mission volunteers who finished their work in New York City are back home sharing what they've learned. The goal is to spread the knowledge so the message can go even farther.
Earlier, we recorded an interview with Gilbert Kanji, who is a youth director for the world's Seventh-day Adventist Church. He brings us more on 1 year in mission.
Pastor Gilbert Kanji, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Gary.
Now, 1 Year in Mission is an exciting new initiative, just started this year. Tell us about it.
Yes, well, Gary, first of all, two premises. We believe that every young person, or every person for that matter, is called to ministry. And it's not necessarily by sitting under a tree and praying that you will find your place in ministry. And so we believe that it is in the journey of service that one discovers one's life purpose. And so 1 Year in Mission is one such opportunity that has been created to give young adults an opportunity to give a slab of their time in full-time ministry for a year, and hopefully that will confirm their calling. It's an exciting project. I believe that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of young people who would love to use an opportunity like that to get involved in service. But the question is, where do we send them?
Right.
And so 1 Year in Mission is a dream from our president to see a new awareness of long-term service in the lives of young people. And the question that we had was, all right, we could create an awareness campaign, we could have hundreds of young people, then what do we do with them? Where do we send them? But we decided to ride on this wave that has already been created for the World Church, that is mission to the cities.
Yes.
So there is a global agreement that mission to the cities will be a focus in years to come. And so we decided to say, why don't we align 1 Year in Mission with mission to the cities? And the project started at the beginning of this year when New York City was like the prime experiment when this was going to be the first time that this will be tried. And so we had consulted with our youth directors around the world, and they went through a selection process where one young person was chosen from each of our 13 geographical divisions and one from Middle East, North Africa. And a task force of 14 young adults was created to be like the first phase or the first exercise of 1 Year in Mission. And these young adults spent January to June in New York City preparing the city for the campaigns that were run there in July. It was an exciting, challenging and exciting, having 14 young adults from 14 different parts of the world, from 14 different cultures, to live in 2 apartments. That was like, a challenge in itself, but it's amazing in the midst of those challenges what the outcome has been.
Yeah, and I had the privilege, Gilbert, as you know, of spending a couple of days with them,
Yes.
sharing with them, and I was ministered to as well. I mean,
Yes.
they're not just sitting there idly, passively. They're actively engaged. They're asking hard questions. They're learning.
Yes.
And how do you think it changed them, their experience there in New York?
Well, when I look at their experience, I had a new insight into the resilience of young adults.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that there's no blueprint for this.
Right.
And we had a plan, but it had never been experimented with before. So they were supposed, their task was to come up with a concept of comprehensive evangelism. And the idea was to for them to partner with local churches who were involved in comprehensive evangelism, meaning in preparation for July 2013, they would be getting involved in community service projects, in different kinds of projects that would create a base of interest that would then be taken to the mission to the city in 2013. But the reality is that few churches are working along those lines. And we found ourselves in a tight situation where we could not find churches that we could align those young people with. And so we decided to change the concept, and we said, well, instead of trying to find entities to align with, you will have to create the model. Mm. And so that became the challenge, and we were blessed with 3 churches that said, all right, we're willing to let you have a go. So what would you like to do? And it was just amazing how these young people, in the space of 3 months, generated interest that eventually came to Mission to the Cities, where Elder Wilson and others were preaching. One such experiment was at the Ephesus Church, in downtown Harlem. And if you've been there, you know the buzz of that part of the world. And 4 young people, one from India, one from Korea, one from Denmark, and one from the United States. And Dr. Blue said, well, come up with a concept. So they started by standing in front of the church at peak hour, traffic people. They just started to stop people and asking them whether they wanted to be prayed for. Mm. So they felt impressed to do that. And they did that day in, day out, and until they started to meet the same people every day. And then they prayed, and they said, what could we do for those young people? And elderly people as well. So they decided they would run an international vegetarian cooking class. And they started to, they created a little invitation, and after 3 or 4 weeks, they had 60 interests. Mm. Totally new people who had never darkened the doors of our church. And so they went to the church board and said, well, we would like to run an international vegetarian class. And they said, when would you like to do that? They said, well, Wednesday night. They said, Wednesday night is our prayer meeting night. They said, well, you pray while we work. So it was an interesting situation. And when they realized that these young people had done their homework, and they actually had 60 non-Adventists who would come, on the church premises for that. And so they opened the door, and it was an amazing experience. And some great stories came out of that. And I had the opportunity to go and to meet with Dr. Blue, who's a church pastor, and to thank him personally for having given our young people a chance. But he said to me, Pastor Kanji, I'm the one to thank you.
Fantastic.
Because those young people have changed our church. Totally different culture, totally different environment, with no prior contact. In 1 month, those young people brought 60 non-Adventists on the church premises.
Gilbert, thank you for the story. I know there's 100 more, but our time is gone. For more information about this initiative, where can our viewers find that?
gcyouthministries.org.
gcyouthministries.org. Thank you so much.
They can find OYIM, 1 year in mission on the
Fantastic.
site.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There is no perfect formula to reach others for Jesus, but it does require a loving heart and a willing spirit.
Let's watch how these enthusiastic missionaries prepared their cooking class in New York City.
The cooking class was an event where we just wanted to use it actually to get in contact with community people. At the same time, we wanted also to teach them health principles, but more importantly, we wanted to lead them to God.
If you think about Christ's ministry, he always met people where they were. He fed them first. He didn't try to preach to them. He didn't try to teach them or anything. He fed their need, or he supplied the need that really helped them to preach to them for the most part.
As a team, we worked so hard to get everything ready. Each one of us has a different roles, and we got stressed every Wednesday, but at the end of every Wednesday, we were so happy and we were so glad to see the reaction of the people, how they enjoyed the class, the food, the fellowship, and I think this was our prize.
From week to week, it kept getting better, and so we're really thankful to God for that.
People in Harlem, they seem like they are so much interested about vegetarian food. Whenever I introduced like, oh, today we have vegetarian cooking class and it's international. Chefs are from India and Mexico. They were so much interested in it.
Thanks for coming.
I met a woman who's been coming to our class on a regular basis. She said, I'm a heavy meat eater. She said, I'm about to change my life. My life is about to change. She said, from here on out, I'm going to change the way that I do things because I've learned about New Start and I can't go back to what I was.
There was one lady, I told her, well, we have a health lecture, and then she was suddenly interested. And so she started coming, and she was a little skeptical in the beginning, but she was there every single time. She was one of the only ones who didn't miss any night. And I got to also make friends with her and talk to her.
It was better than I expected because of the countries and the information, the learning about the different countries. It wasn't just vegetarian, it was vegetarian from all over the world.
At the end, our goal was to introduce Jesus through the New Start, and then at the end, we have trust in God. We thought about how can we connect this food activity to Christ.
The best part is we don't have to do something great. You can do small little things and do it with all your heart, and God can bless that little. Amazing.
I hope you're enjoying our program today.
So sit tight. After the break, we'll get to connect with Liz Moda, one of the missionaries who is currently working in South America.
You don't want to miss this. Welcome back to Mission 360. Today we are learning about a new type of missionary. They came to New York City from all parts of the world to learn new techniques to reach people in the city.
And now they are working back home, teaching others what they have learned. Let's watch a short clip about the challenges they encountered while working in a large metropolis.
Pay attention at the beginning. The first person who speaks will join us later today, all the way from Brazil. Her name is Liz Moda.
It is hard because in Brazil everybody is more open. They are friendly, you can talk to someone in the bus, in the subway, and then you can try to make connection and say something.
It's my first time when I live with someone who I don't know really. Sometimes it's difficult because you need like your own space. I try to be humble, I try to be patient to understand them more.
You're having to navigate through all kinds of individuals coming with the different cultural beliefs and cultural ideas, and it's made me a little bit more patient.
It's different back home because you can see the needs of people because you're familiar with them and you know the circumstances back home. And here it's hard to reach people. It's hard to understand them. People are very busy and maybe we haven't had a chance to connect with the people that we really need to connect to.
I understand that God can't depend on feelings, but I like to feel my God when I look at the sky, when I see nature. But here it's more difficult because big buildings, and so a little piece of sky, and so I can't see stars here because it's big city and all the lights.
Being together with all these people, it is not always easy. It involves challenges, and it teaches you patience.
When God, he brought me here, in the beginning I was struggling if I really could go here because I didn't feel capable of doing this project. It has been challenging to come and just leave it in God's hands, but God, He's trying to show me really that in my weakness He is strong, and to trust Him with all the things that will happen here, that He will work.
Hello, Liz. Thank you for joining us from Northeast Brazil. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Gary.
Good. It's been a few months since I saw you and the other 1 year in mission volunteers in New York City.
Yep, that was right.
At that time, you were involved in many sorts of community activities, and since then you've taken your experience from New York back to South America. What are your plans now?
Well, the projects we did there cannot be applied exactly the same way we did in New York, but we get the concept. So right now, I'm preparing a project to take place in Uruguay, just like the model we had in New York in the beginning of this year. So I'm working on all the preparations, and the projects we are going to do there are going to be very similar in a way, but we are going to contextualize. So for example, English classes, as we did in New York, is not very applicable there since it's not a very common necessity. But at the same time, we found out that family is a big issue over there. So one of the plans is to start a school for families. And we are going to work the necessities of the community, but not only necessities as food, as helping people with needs that they have about money or other needs like this. We are going to work with social needs and spiritual needs, of course. Another project that we are planning to do is a cooking school, a healthy cooking school. And we saw already that this is a big issue over there as well. Even salt is now forbidden in the restaurant.
Oh, wow.
So you see that, yeah, they have lots of problems with blood pressure and obesity. So it's something that we are planning to do as well.
Wonderful. Now, Liz, earlier on in the program, Pastor Gilbert Kanji, who heads up youth ministries for the World Church, explained to us about the mission, 1 year in mission program. You've now gone back to South America and you will be leading a team to go to Uruguay. Tell us the team, how is that built up?
Well, the team is composed with 16 volunteers, and we have one volunteer for each union, which is one part of South America that sometimes has more than one state in Brazil, or in the case of the Hispanic countries, it's one union for each Hispanic country. So in this case, we have one volunteer, one missionary from each part of our division. So 16 in total, and we also have a chaplain going along with us. And this is the main concept of the team.
Fantastic. So you're taking the inspiration and the lessons you learned from New York and now you're applying it there. Why did you choose Uruguay?
Well, Uruguay, in fact, is the biggest challenge in our division. We are well known for growing a lot. The church is growing a lot in South America, but we do have our challenges. And one of the biggest ones is Montevideo, Uruguay. I mean, the whole country of Uruguay is a very secular place, and the church is very small over there, especially because the state and religion are completely separate. So there are people in Uruguay that never heard about God. They never opened the Bible. They never saw a Bible in front of them. And sometimes it's unbelievable to think about that in South America, but there is such case. So we are planning to try to do something different there by working with projects, small groups, and then Bible studies. And that's the main idea. And also working with Hope Hope Radio, because we have the radio station in Uruguay, which is called Nuevo Tiempo. So we are planning to work with the radio as well, because they do have a lot of audience over there, and lots of people ask for Bible studies, but since they don't have too many missionaries over there, they're not able to attend all these Bible studies. So the group is going to be working with the radio as well, so we can have a bigger, in fact, a bigger, I love the word, sorry.
A bigger reach to the audience, yeah. So
yeah.
Now, Liz, why don't your team just go into the capital city of Uruguay and start preaching at the people?
I'm sorry, it cut it.
I'm sorry, why don't you just go and start preaching? Why are you doing all these other things?
Yeah, this is really interesting, because some people think, well, let's just go there and start preaching like we do in Brazil. But things work differently there. And since we were a little at first, what can we do in such a big city? And people are so busy, they don't have time to hear from God. And most part of them don't believe they need God. So we decided to use the same method as Jesus used it here when he was here in earth. So we decided to do exactly how he did, which was attending the needs of people, making friends, mingling with the people, and then getting their trust and making really good friends. And then people start to follow him. And we're doing the same, at least we're trying to do the same.
You gave exactly the answer I was hoping you'd give, Liz, that it's a holistic ministry based on Jesus' example. Wonderful. Liz, looking back to your time in New York, is there a short experience that you can share with us that you found that affected you strongly?
Well, what really affected me was the idea of doing evangelism in a different way. Because as you said, I come from a country that you can openly talk about God, and you can go to the streets and invite people to your church, and they usually come. Or the Hope Channel in Brazil is very strong, and people watch the Hope Channel over here. And you can just do it in a simple way, we can say it this way. But when I got to New York, I realized that it wasn't that simple to do evangelism in other parts of the world. So when I start getting all these concepts about this holistic view of starting with projects, attending the needs of people, it made a huge difference in my life to understand this whole concept.
Fantastic. Liz, have you met your other team members yet?
Well, not in person, in fact. And it's interesting because I only have been in contact with them by email and Facebook. But it's interesting that everybody is already getting along pretty well. And in fact, yesterday, I was talking to some of them in our Facebook group. And it was interesting because they're all excited already and praying, and they proposed a fast day. We are going to fast all together during one day. And it's really nice to see that although we are not together yet, we already have this spiritual connection that is so important for mission.
Fantastic, Liz. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today. And I know that many of our viewers will join me in praying for you.
Amen. Thank you, Gary.
God bless.
I hope you have caught the vision and that you have gotten ideas to reach your community.
Each one of us needs to be involved in working for the benefit of others. Christ's formula is simple. Hang out with people, show that you care for them, help out where needed, and you will certainly win their confidence.
Then it's easy to invite them to follow Jesus. Mission 360 is not over yet. Gary Krause will be back after a short break.
When Jesus called his first disciples, he saw them right beside the Lake of Galilee, and they were washing their nets. They'd been out fishing all night, they'd had no luck, and there they were ready to go home. Jesus was teaching at the time, and he stopped at the end and he called out to those fishermen. He said, "Push out into deep waters and let down your nets for a catch." Now, if I'd been one of those fishermen, I think I would have been tempted to say, "Lord, we have the greatest respect for you. You're a wonderful teacher, you're a wonderful carpenter, but with the greatest respect, we are the professional fishermen. We're fishermen, our fathers are fishermen, our grandfathers were fishermen. We know every technique. We tried every technique last night and it didn't work, so just give us a break, let us go home, have breakfast and go to bed. But if they had taken that attitude, they would have missed out. And we read the story in Luke chapter 5 where Peter says, Lord, even though all the evidence is against it, because you say so, we'll do it. And sure enough, they put out their nets, they dropped them, and they got so many fish, the nets started to break. Of course, Jesus wasn't just telling a nice story about fishing on Lake Galilee. He was talking about mission, about reaching out to people. And on this program, we see so many people who are pushing out into deep waters for Jesus, taking risks, going into unentered areas, trying new methods, and God is blessing them. If you'd like to find out more about Adventist Mission around the world, just visit our website at adventistmission.org. Thanks for joining us today, and I want to thank you for your continuing support for mission with your prayers and your finances. And I hope that you can join me next time right here on Mission 360.